welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. It's always fascinating to see how songs can catch on and, in some cases, become emblematic of an entire era. For many, the early 90s hip-hop scene is typified by songs like Jump Around, the debut single from Los Angeles trio House of Pain. They charted around the world, and while that debut single hit number 3 in the US and number 15 in Australia, they never quite matched the same critical and commercial heights. By the time they'd hit the big time, one member of the group, Everlast, had already gone solo with a debut album in 1990, having previously emerged as a member of Ice-T's rhyme Syndicate. But once House of Pain called it quits in 1996, Everlast went solo once again, with albums like 1998's Whitey Sings the Blues going top 10 in the US. He even took home a Grammy in 2000 thanks to Put Your Lights On, a collaboration with Santana, which is still a track I go back to regularly. However, while albums would come relatively regularly, his most recent record, 2018's Whitey House of Pain, was his last for some time, with live shows being largely put by the wayside and new music emerging only rarely. As he explains, there was a lot going on: COVID, a house fire, a divorce, and even a health event which left him unable to play guitar. This year, however, he returns with Embers to Ashes, an album which falls into vintage Everlast territory, pairing his vulnerability with acclaimed musicianship in a way that appeals to fans both long-time and nascent. This week, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Everlast. Well, we had the chat back in May, if you want to peek behind the curtain, to chat about the new record and everything associated with it. If you're eager to hear war stories about his time in House of Pain, I will admit you may be disappointed, but Everlast, or Whitey if you prefer, is someone who can still tell a good story and share some real interesting tales about his experiences with music. Anyway, have a listen to Everlast's Embers to Ashes, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Everlast, thank you very much for joining this episode of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Well, thanks for having me on.
So, for those who don't recognize your name, I guess could you give me a quick few words to introduce yourself and what it is that you do in the world of music?
I go by the name Everlast. I guess first and foremost, to me, I'm an MC, a singer, songwriter, producer, writer. Give me a job, I'll do it.
Well, pretty much every job that you've done well, at least from what I've experienced over the years. But what I love to do before I sort of get onto chatting about those jobs is I like to sort of go back in time to where a love of music first began. So for you, do you have a recollection, of your earliest memory of when music actually first resonated with you?
Well, both my parents were big music people, not musicians by any means, but just big fans of music and really different ends of the spectrum. Like my father worked construction and, kind of, typical old country, like original country kind of music and Southern rock and stuff. But my mom was a Motown, 60s R&B loving, person. So I got this really good eclectic upbringing of classic American music.
Absolutely, because that's a really sort of nice mixture of the soul of the music, and also, I mean, it's true for both genres, really, country and sort of Motown stuff. The lyrics are really strong, and there's a lot of authenticity in them as well. So, I guess for you, when you were sort of listening to that, with any specific artists that were sort of really coming to mind, or you were hearing a lot of?
I mean, I remember, very young because of my mother being a huge fan of the Supremes, anything Supremes still to this day comes on.
Yeah. They're amazing.
I get excited about, but I learned everything there is about, Waylon and Willie and Johnny Cash and all that kind of, outlaw music from my father and everything that happened after the job, I would do summers with my father on the jobs doing what they call scrapping. You just go and pick up all the stuff they don't use and throw it in a pile, But at the end of the day, they go eat. End of the day for construction guys is 3, because they go to, they're there 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so it was, usually taken to a bar to eat. They'd start drinking their beers and running the jukebox, and that's where I learned all that stuff. So um, equally important to me. But an early, yeah, probably one of my father's favorites, and one of my favorites also, oddly enough, even though he's so into Southern rock, was Neil Young.
Yeah,
Neil
right.
Young, big deal to me as far as songwriting. Um, I leaned into what he was doing real hard once I started. I don't. The odd thing too is I don't consider it all different at all. Like from what they call bars to you know writing a verse for a ballad. It's all the same like approach for me.
Hmm.
So it's all bars.
I mean, songwriting is songwriting. A good song is a good song, no matter what the genre is. So I guess, like for you, how did you sort of discover this world of writing lyrics, playing music? Like, what was that journey like for you from listening to music to actually saying, I'm going to make it myself?
Um, Hanging out with friends. I was originally highly intrigued by graffiti and graffiti writing, and I was doing that primarily with some friends that were from New York that had come out to LA, and I just wanted to. I immersed myself in that culture, and they were also making like demos. This is also there was no record business for rap. There was making a demo meant you might have a connect to an independent record dude. You might sell 500 record. I mean, it wasn't about money, or it was about knowing what it was like this new thing, like um and so they were making demos and stuff, and I kind of would be painting with them, and or hanging out at the houses doing outlines or whatever, and just while they're rapped, and I make up raps to like as jokes, what I mean, kind of a thing, like your mom this or that, but I do it with a rap, kind of like, and my buddy who is known as the Divine Styler pulled me aside and said, you could really rap. You should give it a shot. And I made a demo, and Ice-T signed me. So it was kind of like, um, I feel like that's kind of how, I'm a very fortunate dude. I don't know what I did in a previous life, but the road signs are always clear where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. I've never question it, good or bad. I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
So I guess, like following that sort of journey from where you sort of, you get signed, I think it's what, 1990, you release your first record. Then obviously there's House of Pain, which I'm not going to lean too much on. But obviously after House of Pain wraps up, what is it that makes you decide to sort of, go solo again and sort of do like Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, which I guess is where Everlast really kicked off in the public eye. Like, what was that sort of decision like for you?
Um, it wasn't, it just House of Pain had just run its course for me,
Mhm.
and I don't think it was just me, but I definitely wasn't enjoying myself, and I really when I left House of Pain, I didn't really think. You start to put things into terms of like, well, how many shots do you get? This was my second.
Mhm.
This one, I actually, we got a home run out of. So somewhere in my mind, I was just kind of like, well, that's cool. You know what I mean? That's what it is, I guess. But I went into a bit of a depression for a few months, and my buddy Dante Ross in New York was like, called me up, definitely detected it, and was like, get your ass to New York and let's just start making music. And Whitey Ford Sings the Blues was originally just going to be a hip hop record. Like half that album is straight rap songs. Those were the first songs made. All of those were done by the time What It's Like came on. Like What It's Like was something I would do in my spare time. Like my father had a guitar, and I had a few little chords I knew, and it was a little ditty that I had a piece of. You know what I mean? Um, and a pause on that, but that was funny. Uh, so I had this little piece of song, you know what I mean? And I was playing it. I was crashing at my buddy Dante's house while we made these records, and he heard what I was playing, and he just came out and was like, "What the hell is that?" Came out from the back of his house, and I was just, I don't know, it's just this thing. And he was like, "Well, finish it because we're gonna record it tomorrow." And we recorded it. It was just like it was like a bunch of rap songs and then that. So, but we knew something was that was something, but we didn't. We now it was like, all right, how do we make it work? And that's how I started writing. Ends is a song that was it was a rap song first. I kind of turned it on its ear and started playing with the guitar more, and and I wrote a few songs, and they seemed to work, and it just kind of was all, again, these signs. Everything I was doing felt right. It was, I had, my John Gamble and Dante Ross just at my back, letting me know, like, no, this is good. Don't because there were people who were at the label that label hated it. They thought we were insane. They thought I was going to ruin my career. Yeah, which again, I was already like, it's ruined anyways. I quit the biggest band I'll probably ever be in, and I don't know. And then I wound up selling more records than I sold anywhere ever, by a lot.
Were you surprised, I guess, just by how much like a song like What It's Like really resonated? Because I mean, obviously, if it's a song that you're making, you're like, okay, it's coming from a good place. It's coming from a place of like authenticness. And if other people are saying this is pretty good, are you expecting like that to actually translate on a wider level? Because that must have come as a bit of a surprise to you.
I'll say it the same as I said for Jump Around. It's like I knew it was a good record.
Yeah.
I knew this is a good record. Now what you're talking about is longevity, something that manages to stick around and stay meaningful for a long period of time. And that's I don't think anybody could really think in those terms. You hope. I mean, that's kind of what the whole thing's about, I guess. That's the closest thing you're going to get to being immortal.
Yeah.
As far as like being a human,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can definitely say in terms of the longevity for years after that song came out, I still remember trying to just I still just remember trying to learn the intro to What It's Like on guitar, never managing to get it right.
So easy, bro. So easy, bro.
It was like the first.
It's so easy, bro. You know it?
Yeah, I do now.
Be
Yeah,
mine.
yeah,
And if I have, then it's the
yeah.
whole song.
Because I'm pretty sure it was like the first song I actually sort of really like learned on guitar, like learned by ear.
I might got 9 songs with like just F, C, G.
Exactly.
I play cowboy chords, man. I play cowboy chords, and I write good stories.
Yeah.
I write decent lyrics.
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely get a lot of mileage out of the standard chords, that's for sure. So I guess in the eyes of the the fan base and the general public, when you actually sort of when you went against solo with Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, and you're saying there is a little bit of a shift. There's rap songs on there. You've got songs like What It's Like and everything. How did that sort of feel for you to sort of branch out into, I guess, new territory? Even though this new territory was stuff that was it's stuff that you'd been listening to for a while. It was stuff that you'd been playing, obviously. Like, was that a little bit daunting to sort of take it in a different direction?
I don't know about daunting. Nothing becomes daunting when you survive like what happened to me. I mean, it's like you're just kind of like, I'm here and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be hey, thanks for inviting me. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
At that point, it's like, what's really daunting? I know what you mean by it. But I think the best answer I could have is somebody else's right now. I heard Andre 3000 give an answer about rapping, and he's just like, look, I just don't have that in me right now. And that was I think this is the first album I've ever put out that doesn't have a rap song, at least a couple rap songs on it. So I just didn't have that in me at this moment. But it's all the same to me. It's all up here. It's all rap songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
No, it 100% makes sense. And I guess that actually serves as a nice little segue, because I definitely should be touching on the new record. So I guess for those playing at home, it's currently been, 8 years since your last solo record, which was Whitey Ford's House of Pain in 2018. And we're soon seeing the release of Embers to Ashes. So obviously, I'm aware there's been a few ups and downs in the ensuing years, but I guess, what has this journey to new music looked like for you over these past 8 years?
Again, another, I kind of put it down after like COVID came. Once COVID came along and I was looking at the age of my two daughters, and I was just like, I'm good right
Mm.
now. I didn't have it in me. I didn't want to be out there. I didn't want to be away, and I had no like fear of missing out about it. So, and I didn't really have the urge to write. So, you know, maybe, life had to life a little bit, I guess. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I watched my daughters growing into young women. I've, had my ups and downs with some things, with, fires and all kinds of crazy shit. Hence, embers to ashes is kind of reference to like everything burning down. You know what I mean? And then what you gonna do?
Yeah. Because I listened to this record before sort of reading through the current bio and everything. Because obviously, if I'm familiar with an artist, I know who I'm listening to, and the press releases and everything help to fill in the blanks. But obviously, like I wasn't aware of sort of what had gone on for you over this past 8 years and everything. But I guess looking at this record now, it feels very much like a bit of like a triumph that we're hearing anything at all. Like you're saying before, you didn't have it in you. There's been again a lot going on. So, how do you sort of look at this record? Are you viewing it as a triumph as well, or is it more of a case of, well, I want to make music, and this is what happens when I weather all the shit that's come my way and actually return to the craft again?
Well, it's a little bit of both in there. I got to a point where I started writing songs, which is usually a cue for a lot of things, but I didn't want to make a record. Like I didn't want to have to make the record. Like that was the thing. Like I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want to produce it all. I didn't want to be the boss of it, so to speak. I wanted to be the executive producer and a writer and a performer. And crazy. I mean, it goes into a whole nother crazy story about how, Yellow Wolf and I have been friends for a long time. And we had been cross paths as friends out in Germany. He was doing a show one night after me. I was going to France the next day, had a day off. I, would, I had a Leica camera. I was trying to learn how to use it. When we started talking, I was like, yo, I'm going to stick around an extra day. I'm going to shoot your show tomorrow. I'm going to try and figure out. So that wound up being the night of the Baclan shooting in Paris, which my current sound man and tour manager, and was prior to that, for years, a guy named Sean London was that front of house guy for Eagles of Death Metal. Like he was front of house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Several of the Deftone guys were friends of mine. They were there. I know I would have wound up there, like, because it was our night off. We would have been like, where is it? Yeah, who's in town? You know what I mean? It just would have happened.
Yeah.
So me not going, we're getting all these stories coming in that night, even before learning any of the stuff about what happened. Yellow had leaned in after we had a few drinks and was like, yo, I want to produce a record for you. And I kind of just thought of it in song terms at that time. Like, oh, you want to produce a song for me? That's cool. But we'll figure it out. Uh, and we just kind of went in different directions as far as just like, working and this, kids, whatnot. And when it came time now to do it, and I thought about like not wanting to do it, that phrase came to me. Like, I called him up and I said, you remember when you said that? And he was like, yeah. I was like, you want to make a record? And he just jumped at the opportunity. And like I literally have the date tattooed right here because he always has a tattoo guy around him. And so it's kind of crazy like how it just comes back around. And he did a great job. He produced the entire album. I wrote with a couple guys and played a little on it and kind of just had a good time,
Yeah.
and made a record that I wanted to make.
So I guess for you, because like you were saying before that you weren't wanting to make an album or anything because there's a whole process involved, obviously, in making a record, a larger process, and I think a lot of music fans would really recognize and realize. But for you, what was it that inspired that return to writing? Like, was there a moment where you were saying, "Hey, I'm going to start writing a record," or is it just a case of you start sort of writing and you realize, "Oh, I'm now writing stuff that could be a record."
I'm not so cocky that I've ever once in my life thought there was going to be a next record till I knew songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think I've ever like said, all right, here's the schedule. We got to start from here. And though we kind of did that now, but I had songs like, oddly enough, that, it's kind of crazy, but no, 90% of the time I'm just, a song will happen and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And then sometimes I'll have that for a while, but once there's three or four or five, and if I see a shape to them in the sense of like they don't have to be by any means like thematic records or anything like that, but what I write and the way I write is primarily about my life and the way I live. If I see a shape to a story there that has a bigger picture for me, because I'm an album guy,
Mm.
uh, then I start to understand it might be time to work on a record.
Yeah.
And I produced a lot of records on my own. And I just also think I got into that mode of, I call it the Dr. Dre complex, when it's like a home studio for me became just too comfortable. It's too easy to walk away from it and be like, I'll come back to it later. Or it's so coming to Nashville and making a record on, in real studios with real old equipment and like paying by the hour, it puts you on a different game.
Yeah.
You start acting like it's the moment matters more.
Yeah.
Sense.
100%. Because I mean, it's a sort of thing where it removes that sense of complacency, and you're thinking about things in a different way, and you sort of, again, if you're paying by the hour, you want to make sure you're getting your damn money's worth, don't you?
Yeah, I probably showed up, like I said, with 7 or 8 songs, and maybe 2 or 3 of them actually made the album because we wrote so many songs.
Yeah, right.
Like it just once in Nashville, I played the guys that I worked with primarily, a guy named D-Ray and a guy named Chief. They kind of grew up on Whitey Ford stuff and Everlast stuff and House of Pain stuff. And so once they saw what I was doing with the songs I was writing, they tapped right in and were able to speak the same language, and it was an interesting experience for me because I'm always of the MC mind frame of like, you got to write it yourself. So having collaborators, on top line stuff was really interesting.
Hmm. Do you think that's something that you'll like do in the future as well, or would you sort of have that return to writing it all yourself?
I mean, I still am. It actually, I came home from all of that on fire. I've been writing a lot of songs, so
Hmm.
not even thinking of and again, not for anything. It's just like sometimes you see, uh, all right. Like I said, my dad was a construction guy, right? But the way he hung a sheet of drywall might not have been the same exact way the guy next to him hung a sheet of drywall. You know what I mean? So sometimes hearing or seeing the other guy's way of doing it can make your way a little bit better.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of looking at
Steel,
it. Yeah.
steel sharp as steel type shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you
But
do
I would
also,
work with certain people. I would work with anytime. It's kind of like they got to be speaking your language. Like, I mean, certain people write songs. I'm just like, that's just not me. It's a great song, amazing job, but I would never
yeah,
sing that or do that or say that.
yeah. Also, you were saying before that, like with this record as well, like it's, I think it's like, well, it's the first record that you've done where there's no rap songs on it. Like, because you're saying that you didn't have it in you. Do you feel that there is a return to that sort of sound in the future, or is it just a case of at the moment I didn't have it in me? We'll see what happens next.
Um, you know, I mean, I did a group with some buddies, La Coca Nostra in like 2008.
Mm.
I did a thing with my buddy Devon Styler and a guy named Sick Jackin in like 2016 called War Porn Industries. You know, I don't know, man. For me, it's kind of like a sport thing. If you put me in the room with the right dudes that are fun to be around, and I just think like, oh wow, these dudes are beast, and it makes me want to beast.
Yeah.
It has to be something like that. Not even like a mean competitiveness. It's just gonna be like, oh, like me and B Real have toyed with the idea of making a record, but it's like we've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, but if I were to make a last like rap record, it would be something like that, like Be Real and Mugs
Yeah.
or something of that nature.
Right. Right. And And also, just going back to this record for a second, like I think something that really strikes me about it is, and this is something I've always appreciated about your lyrics and you as a songwriter, is that there's a real sense of authenticity to everything. Like I can really believe everything that you are saying, and to me, you feel like someone who will only sort of lay down lyrics if they actually matter to you. So as a result, this record feels very personal and affecting. But I think one thing I was sort of thinking of is that there is a sense of vulnerability in a lot of your work, and coming from the world of hip hop and being an MC, it's often easier to mask vulnerability with bravado. So I guess, is this sense of vulnerability something that has become easier to show over the years? Was it something that was sort of you had to learn at all, or has it been a natural thing for you?
You definitely got to learn it. You got to learn how to act on it.
Mm.
But Chuck D told me when I was 18 years old, not that my mother didn't tell me similar things, but the way he put it hit the hardest, I think, was when I'm 18. I got to meet Chuck D because of Ice-T and all this connections of that nature. And, we were talking about something and he just said, like, it's not hard to be hard. It's not hard to be hard. It's hard to be soft. And after you hear, the hardest revolutionary rap dude ever to exist say something like that, it's hard to like, okay. And then having daughters and all, it becomes easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely also imagine that, if I was hearing advice from my mother over the years and then Chuck D told me the same thing, I think I know who I'm listening to. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's only going to hit a little bit harder.
It's just also the way he said it,
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, he has an amazing way with words and yeah, I mean, I don't need to be explaining it at all. Um, I'd also be remiss not to ask as well, but like, what does the world of live performance look like for you? Because I know a few years ago you said you're pretty much retired from playing live shows, but I have seen some talk of live appearances coming up. So how is that looking for you? How is that like this return looking for you?
Um, I'm lightly walking my way back into it. Uh, we got a festival in the middle of summer, some smaller acoustic things, and um, a few special guest appearances.
Hmm.
Uh, and then, if all that works out, we'll see what 2027 looks like. Is that really what you're in?
Yeah.
Wow. But, I love playing live. Uh, so, that's, right now it's like, again, I didn't have it in me for a while. Right now I'm feeling like I might. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, it just comes down to that whole thing of like, following the gut, following the signs that are shown to you and seeing what the future holds, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Sometimes you got to go with the flow.
Well, speaking of going with the flow, I think I should just get down to this portion of this podcast in which its namesake comes from. So, the trusty chords concept, I basically follow the 1, 3, and 5 structure of a standard chord. So, I ask about one artist that's been impactful, 3 albums, and 5 songs. It's a nice little sort of like off the hip sort of question. So, what I love to do here is I love to ask the question for you. I'd love to know who was the one artist that inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively.
Ooh, um, the most. My friend Divine Styler,
Hmm.
first guy that encouraged me to rap. He was way ahead of the curve. A lot of people kind of, I won't say stole his style, but were influenced heavily by him. And just like how different he was in hip hop already in 1990 compared to what people were doing, is one of the reasons that I was able to always just kind of be uh, I wasn't attached to any formula or genre or field of expertise.
Yeah,
I know there
absolutely.
was not chords, but
Oh no, no, by all means. As I always like to say to people, this is my podcast. I make the rules, so we we just go with the flow, as you were saying. Next question I have: I'd love to know if there are 3 albums that have impacted you the most throughout your life, like albums that you're always throwing on, or things that were integral to the musical evolution.
um, um, wow, there's so many albums.
And also, as I like to say to people, it's always fun to have an honorable mention or anything if you need, because it is very hard to condense it down to 3.
Yeah. Like I mean, because things influence you along the way. It's
Absolutely.
probably early on, it would be something, and probably a Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin record. Um, go with Led Zeppelin 4 just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but like, I mean, Cypress Hill's first album is one of the greatest albums I ever heard in my life, and still to this day, I think it's flawless in the realm of "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back." Is Prince, Purple Rain, fucking another flawless fucking record. Uh, uh, what Radiohead, the bands. I mean, I get, you know what I mean? There's too fucking many records that have just like fucking blown my mind. And that definitely afterwards I did something or tried to do something differently. I mean, that would be inspired by that, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm also very glad to actually hear someone mention, when they mentioned Radiohead, mentioning the Bends, because that's always been my favorite album of theirs, and I feel like it gets overlooked in the general discussion with what comes next or anything.
That's the one, though, to me. Don't get me wrong. Okay, Computer and all that coming after is great stuff. Like the Benz it was, it's when they kind of, I guess, I don't even know why they hated the first one so much themselves, but okay. But when you come back and you do that, I ain't mad at you.
Yeah, who can be? It's a stellar record. And my final question here, I'd love to know, like, if there are five songs you could always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all, the five trusty songs in your life.
Oh, well, Change Gonna Come by Sam Cooke is definitely gotta be number one. Make Me Feel Better songs. But I've not been thinking content too much. Songs that just make me feel better. Joe Cocker, Woman to Woman.
Yeah,
Uh, uh, I mean, Fake Plastic Trees. Put that on. I love that song. So
absolutely.
happy.
That one,
Uh,
that one's impossible to touch.
um, uh, any Supreme song. Stop in the Name of Love. Say, just because that reminds me of my mom. And we'll say Harvest.
No, those are some truly amazing choices we've got there, and I'm very very grateful for you taking the time to answer today. So, look, I feel this is where I need to say, Everlast, thank you so much for your time today and for being part of the Trusty Chords podcast as well.
Oh, man, my pleasure. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there is no obligation to do so, but considering it helps the podcast reach, I am forever grateful if you do. As always, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. I've also got the blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find a list of all the songs chosen by my guests each week, along with a playlist of all the songs chosen thus far. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. I also need to thank Everlast for spending his time with me this week for the podcast, and to Joe from Joe Corporate Publicity for helping to organise the chat too. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.